everybody. We are painting today, and what are we painting? We're going to be painting the Gargoyles. This is going to be a speed paint session because I really want to get this done as quick as we can get it done. The good news is these Gargoyles are pretty much from a cartoon, so a lot of these reference photos we have here are cartoony. They're going to be very much solid colors. They're all pretty much one color with a different color for the wings. So it'll be pretty simple to do. We're going to start with our good old leader of the Gargoyles. His name is Goliath. Whoa, Goliath. And he's just purple with some black on his wings. The trick is, what I've done on these already is I've done my standard two-tone priming. So what I do is I prime the whole thing black. I just paint it all black. And then I take a dry brush, much like this, and I just put on some gray to get some mid-tones on there. And then I take another dry brush and I put on some white. And this is how you get this end result. This would be cool to just leave it like this because gargoyles are basically statues in the daytime. So this would be like their stone form. But we want to play with these figures. So basically we're going to want to do their night forms, which are the cartoons. So first thing we want to do is we want to lighten these guys up a bit, because when we put color, anytime I put a light color, even a contrast color on a dark model like this where there's really dark areas, the color, no matter how light it is going to be really dark. So we just want to give it a little bit of a boost. And the color that works best with contrast paints is this Wraithbone white. This is the best primer for when working with Citadel contrast paints. We're basically going to be kind of brushing it on so that way it gives when we do the contrast paints some on top, that it's going to definitely give us some lighter areas that the color can stick to. So when I use these lighter colors, it'll actually show up as a lighter color. We're going to use a good old paper towel. Just take a piece like this. You know, I always take these kind of sheets and fold them in half. And we're going to take a little bit of this Wraithbone. We're going to put it on the towel. This is just called dry brushing, but it's going to be dry brushing to get to to give us some. So we're just going to dab a little bit on there. So that way, it's sort of a half dry brush. It's a wet brush, really. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to kind of glide this over the areas that I really want to be cartoony colored, like his face probably. We want to make sure his face has a little bit more whiteness in there. We want to make sure his chest and his arms are kind of a little bit more white, right? And it's not, I probably went a little too much on there, but basically you just want to kind of, the highlight that you've already created, we're just going to give it a little bit of a bump because this is all going to tone down when we put the contrast paint on top. So we don't want it to be too much. If I just went and primed this white, then it would be completely solid colors, but I still want to keep some of these shadows that I have in the deep crevices, especially in his cape back there and that kind of stuff. And then I'm just going to kind of rub it around and make sure that it's even. Sometimes when you do it this way, it kind of clumps. I don't want it to clump, but I do want to keep those dark recesses in the cape and stuff. But this will just make the purple color pop, I think. All right, so that's all we need to do for Goliath and his kind of area. I really just kind of made it super highlighted. Now, normally if this were like a more realistic figure, I would probably not go so heavy on the Wraithbone here. But since this is a cartoon, I'm trying to get that balance between a cartoon character, which is basically going to just be a solid color, and I want to get that kind of rocky texture that he's still, a gargoyle after all right? So I think that's okay. There's still some under his cape that is not so white, and that may be something we'll worry about later. But first, we're going to put the paint on top of him. So this Wraithbone dries pretty quick, especially when we just dry brush it on like that. So we can probably just go straight for it. So his color scheme is basically straight up this light purple. And he's got black hair and it looks like black on the wings, but it's really a dark purple on the wings. So we have basically the contrast paint of shyish purple. That's our, I call it deep purple or dark purple. This is our dark purple color. This is almost a black, but it's really got a purple hue to it. And then this is our standard super white purple. It's like a very light purple. So we're going to use the Magos purple first. So Magos purple is what is basically going to be on his skin and all that kind of stuff. And even his wings. Right, so we'll just take any kind of brush. You can use like a size 1 brush or something. It doesn't really matter because we're just going to be slopping on this paint. So here's our Goliath, and we're just going to put that on there. We don't want to put it on too heavy, but I did put on the Wraithbone pretty heavy, so that means that it's okay to go a little bit more liberal on this because areas that we may have lost the shadows from putting on the Wraithbone too heavy, the contrast paints, I can have them pool, and that'll give us a little bit more shadow. You see like there, I can use the contrast paint to give me a little shadow in the leg definition that I may have lost by kind of going overboard with the Wraithbone. And we'll just put that on his face. And yeah, if you want it to be more purplish, then maybe go a little bit deeper with this. If you want it to be less purplish, then just want to maybe very lightly put it on. But for the most part, this is what we're figuring. You can see there's not any rocket science to it. It's not like I'm some special brush wizard or something. I'm just slapping on the areas where I think he might have stuff like this tail. He's going to get his tail and the back of his feet. And that's it. These guys are just going to be single colors, so should be pretty easy. And then he's got this little sash area, which is brown. So we're going to use brown for that sash. So we just want to make sure that his skin kind of is covered there. Now, one thing I can do on the wings is that we could, because it definitely looks like all of their wings have darker backs, but I think we're just going to put purple over the wings, and then anything darker that we want, we can put the darkness. Dark always will cover up light. So even if I make this too, if this wing looks too bright, whatever dark color I put on top of it is pretty much going to cover it. So that's a way to save some time and energy by just if you've got one color out, just use the one color, get it going. And then if you want to fill in darker areas, just put the dark right on top of the light. Dark always covers light. You can't do it the other way around. I can't have my light areas cover the dark areas. So that's why I'm always more careful when I put darker colored paint on these figures than not. All right, that's pretty much that. Now you just want to make sure that there's no like glops or pooling in an area that makes one kind of area look weirder than another area. You'll notice I left it pretty dark inside the wings. That may be something you'll want to change with your model. You might want to make it a little bit lighter. But for me, I like it to be dark on the inside because that gives the kind of Batman cloak kind of feel to it if you leave it dark. But you still want to there's still going to be crevices of white that we want to cover with purple. So that's why, even though it's black, you're like, oh, why don't I draw on this? Well, you still want to put the purple on there. Even though it may not show through, there will be some little areas that will show up white that'll bug the hell out of you later if you don't cover them with the purple now. All right, so there we go. We've got him. He's purple. He still needs black hair. He still needs a brown sash, and we're still going to do some dark purple to highlight some things. So let's let's go and do our next color, which is brown, which I use for anything that is leather or, fur. This Gore-Grunt of fur is really your best bet for fur type stuff. It's really cool. It really ends up looking like fur, which is something that you definitely want. So we're going to do that for his little sash area. You just put that right on. You can see it ends up looking like leather. I always use this for leather bags or leather, any kind of belts, those types of things. Now, normally, you don't, with the contrast paint, if you want it to actually show a darkness in the cracks of the color and not the black, then you want to put more contrast paint on than normal. For most of these, since I'm using the contrast paint more as a kind of a layer on top, then we don't really want to put it on too heavy. We just want to put it on just enough. Now this middle is going to be a belt that's going to be black, so we'll just put a black in there in the middle, and that'll be pretty easy when we do his black hair. I do notice that I missed the bottom part here is his tail. That needs to be purple as well. So let's go get our purple back. And I'll just do his tail really quick because I missed it. And again, this is really just to get this stuff on the table. We're not trying to win any awards. You know what I mean? It's super easy. My whole thing is to try to get these done in less than an hour if we can help it. With 6 figures, that's totally doable. You just want to figure out how you want it to go there. All right, so that's that looking good. Now we just need to put some black on this for his hair and his belt. So for black, we always use the good old black Templar. Black Templar is really dark black though, so you want to be conservative. If you really want to see things shine through, then you probably want to go more of a gray. There's a gray that we use as standard, but black also helps cover bad things like bad mistakes or whatnot. So also it's good to kind of slather on a black line if you think it's going to be, if you mess something up and you want to cover it up. Whoops, do that. All right, so we're just going to try to do like a belt. So I'm just kind of painting on a belt. And paint it on the back. All right, and that's his belt. Then we just want to put some of this for his hair. Now you see if I put a lot of this, then it's just going to cover up whatever's underneath. And we want to try to keep like some of these little things that we have created for highlights and whatnot. So we don't want to totally slather it on, but you get the idea. Now sometimes you do, if it's like pitch black hair or something, you want to make sure that you're completely covering it. But for us, yeah, especially his hair, it's pretty black, so I don't have to worry about preserving too much. And yeah, we just want to make sure that when this dries, it's also going to kind of soak into, so sometimes this stuff will look like really wet when you first put it on. And you're like, oh man, that's too wet. But then when it dries, it's going to like recess into the recesses of the model, so it won't look so crazy thick a lot of the times. All right, so that's it. So we got this purple guy. Now the thing is, I think his cape really needs to be a dark purple to make this kind of all pop together. So we're going to get our dark purple out. And yeah, we are going to, oh, that's our normal purple. All Where's my dark purple? Here's my dark purple. Just for a reminder, that's called shyish purple is what we use for the dark purple. And yeah, I think we're going to put this on the outside of the cape. So we do want to kind of keep the edges. You can see in the reference photo, pretty much the edges or the bones of the wings are the same as his skin color. So we want to keep probably this stuff white, anything on the outside white, but then all of the rest of this outside can be a darker. So really we want to kind of maybe just make it a little bit darker shade on the outside and then do some darkness on the inside. Let's see how this looks. And, you know, maybe we'll ruin it. Maybe we won't. I don't know. Let's see. All right, so already I got too much on there. And I'm just going to kind of put this on to make it, you know, in the bones of it, you can see there, you know, it's like a bat wing. It has like little areas that the highlights are still going to be the lighter purple. So I'm avoiding putting the darkness on the bumps. And I'm only kind of putting the darkness on, and I'm trying to leave these areas more whitish. And I don't know, this doesn't, it's going to make the color difference better too, because you definitely don't want it all one tone. You don't want it all to be just purple, that white purple. You want to have a little bit of darkness. So I'm just kind of trying to keep the bumps, putting a little darkness in dark areas to give it like a discoloration of the wing. I mean, all of, you know, skin in general is not all going to be the same color. So it'll give you something to kind of look at. All right, so you can see his wings. We can go even a little bit darker this way. We definitely want his wings to be a different color than his skin, but we don't want it to be, but we also want the wings themselves to have a darker color to it as well. So the whole thing's like a dark purple. But then his skin, you'll see his skin really pops out then when the cape is darker than the skin. You know, so that's why I'm even thinking I'm going darker on the cape, on the whole cape, just to make his skin be able to pop out more, because that'll make it more of a two-tone, a traditional like comic style, where his skin's one color, the cape is another color. But the cape still has some, keep calling it a cape, it's really wings, but the wings definitely still have some stuff to it. Now, if this gets too dark, like I may be doing now, that's okay, because we can use a dry brush to lighten the whole thing up later. But this is pretty much, you know, they are dark demons, these gargoyles, so you definitely want to have some darkness there. All right, so yeah, I think that looks pretty good. The only other thing is he's got a gold belt. There's some gold in the front on the belt, so maybe we'll just put a little bit of gold in there when we're done, but that'll be detail work, so I'll do that after the fact. All right, so that's it. I mean, I think I could smooth this out a little better. You can see where the contrast paint got a little bit splotchy. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to find a purple. So this is my purple layer paint. It's just called Gene Stealer Purple. I think this is probably the best one that we got going on. And I'm going to just do a dry brush with this to kind of make the whole thing come together, kind of make it pop a little bit. So again, I'm going to come over here and I'm going to just rub this paint on this brush until it doesn't really come out anymore. You know, come out a little bit. And we are going to Really, this kind of matches more what we've done on the wings. So I might just kind of put this on the wings just to make it a little bit more poppy. But then also on his skin. I'll make the whole thing. Now I don't want to put too much. It's hard to tell. Yeah, might have gotten a little too much on there, but it kind of ties it together, but keeping the two tones separate. So there we go. You can already see there's maybe a little bit of an area I might correct over here because it's a little bit darker than normal. But for the most part, we keep that texture of the wings. The wings are darker purple than the skin. The skin is lighter purple. And I might even go a lighter dry brush on this. And see, this is unfortunately, with speed painting, I don't like to have to mix paints. But in the case when I want to fix something with a highlight, then I definitely want to, I need to mix a paint. So I definitely want to take this purple color that I have, and I'm just going to take some white, just some acrylic white that you find at your Hobby Lobby or something. I get this from the Blick called matte acrylic white. This is a good way I'd use to basically lighten up any color, any standard color that I have. I just put this white in with the color, and it really makes it, I'm just using this for highlighting, and I really even shouldn't be doing it now, but you know, because with speed painting, we don't want to think about it. But you can see I'm mixing the white, and now it makes this super purpley, white purple area, which is good for us because then I want to take some of that on a smaller brush to use just to smooth out his skin. I definitely want the skin to be a little bit brighter and a little bit smoother, right? So I'm gonna kind of just put this on his skin. Actually, this might actually be, I want his skin to be more pinkish than this. I think this is a little bit too purpley still. So I might end up fixing that later because I don't really have a pink solid color that I'll use. But in general, that's going to be Goliath. So the whole point is you want to get a two-tone structure where his skin is one color, his wings are another color. Let's see if I might end up fixing him later, but let's start on a new guy. And the new guy that's probably going to be the easiest is going to be this guy, who is Broadway. All right, so Broadway, as you can see, is pretty much straight up turquoise. He's here. So that is Broadway. So we have, it looks like turquoise with some green on the inside of the area. So we're going to use this Aethermedic Blue to cover his whole body. So the first thing I'm going to do is the same thing we did before. We definitely want to lighten him up a little bit. So we are going to basically take our wraith bone. Now I think I made a mistake with Goliath and we made him too white. So we're definitely going to want to go easier on the dry brushing for good old Broadway. But you can see how he's got some black areas that are maybe too black, and we want really this nice turquoise color to pop. So what we're going to do is, just kind of lighten him up just a little bit. See that? With our Wraithbone primer, it just makes things, again, we just want the contrast paint to not be so dark that it's going to look ugly. But we also don't want the model to be too much Wraithbone. Otherwise, it's going to get completely washed out, and it'll just be white. And then we might as well have just primed it white. And we don't want any of that, right? All right. So I think that's it. that's what we should have done with Goliath. It's definitely just lightens up the whole thing, but I still have those deep crevices of black that I'm preserving. And pretty much everything that you see that's white now is what we're going to turn into that blue color, which will be awesome. So here we go. Aethermedic Blue. This guy should take 5 seconds, and I'm very excited. All right. Let me get a new brush out here. And here we go. So we're going to just brush it on very lightly, and you can kind of see that this is a great, like really light blue color that ends up looking like this kind of turquoise when you have it on this area. You can see that is a color match, I believe. Yep, so that's pretty good. Yeah, that's a lot of the fun of this, is trying to figure out which paints are going to make which colors and how much you want to, because especially with the contrast paints, if you put on more, it'll be thicker and the color will be deeper. Or you could put on less and the color will be lighter. So also within just the contrast paint itself, you could have a range of, 2 to 3 different shades of color that you could make just by applying more or less paint. So in this case, I definitely want it to be sort of opaque, but I don't want it to cover up what I've already done with the shading. So you just kind of put it on maybe halfway in between what you would normally do. Like for me, if I normally would just put it on to get a light coat, just a little bit more than a light coat, right? Now here's the one that we're lucky that you can actually see the little bones. And so we know that the middle of the wing, we want it to be a different color, and these bones of the wing, we want to be the skin color. So, and the cool part is, I think the inside of the wing is going to be a darker color. So we don't have to be, I guess, so exacting when we do this, because the darker color will fill in the middle. All right, yeah, I knew this guy would come out good because he's got nice, bold, big, like skin areas and features that are easy to paint. Some models are definitely easier to paint, and the textures here end up popping more as well. He's another one. I think he's got a brown sash with a black belt. So we'll just do that brown and the black as well. All right. That's the front of him. Now the back of him, oops. We want to do the same way, but I think I'm just going to make the whole thing turquoise on the back. There you go. And now, you can see how these areas are darker. You could just leave that if you wanted to. We're probably going to give it a color because it shows here there's a color, and that definitely looks like a green color. So we have this, we do have a green color we can use for this, which will be pretty easy. And that color, my friends, is called Creed Camo. This is going to be our super light green. It's a light green for sure. So let me grab a brush and we're going to put this on. All right, and then we just put it in the center of his wings. Oops. And yeah, that makes it really nice. I mean, it's just like the cartoon at that point. Makes a nice light green. Now, even though these areas are kind of black, you're still going to put the green on there because you'll still see the green kind of reflect in the light, even though it's black. So it really makes a cool effect, especially if you're trying to mimic that cartoon effect of the inside of each of the wings being green. All right, so that is that. That's Brooklyn and his wings. Right now, normally I don't think you would do that effect on the outside of the wings, so because the wings themselves these are more like inside wings. So I'm going to leave that more turquoise and that more for that green. All right, let's get a brown sash on him, and I'm going to do brown sash and a black belt. Brown sash, black belt. Here we go. Whoops. All right, where's our brown? This, again, for those playing at home. Brown is going to be our fur, our good old Gorgunta fur. And here we go. Yeah, you'll notice all the brushes I have are pretty much just this one size. Because even with detail, you don't really need a lot of smaller brushes. Just get away with that. There's one thing though, like you'll notice this brush is kind of frayed. Whenever you use contrast paints, the contrast paints really end up fraying the brushes. So you go through a lot of brushes. That's why I tend to get cheap brushes a lot. But frayed brushes will give you a trouble that you might, get paint where you don't want it. And you definitely don't want that to happen. So we definitely want to keep, like, look at that brush. How do I guarantee any paint gets where I want it to go? That brush is garbage. We're going to be throwing that brush away. All right, let's go back to our black. Good old black Templar. And we're going to put that on the belt. All right. And here we go. Now remember, even though there's like a belt buckle here, we still want to cover it in black because, as we know, any silvers that we do, or golds or any metal paint doesn't look good when it's played because they're kind of layer paints and they go, they'll show what's underneath. And the layer paints, any of the metallic paints, they really need black underneath to shine through or to actually look like metal. So we will probably end up putting a metal paint on top of this. So that's why it's just better to just paint the whole thing. And I also want to, I don't want too many highlights on the belt because any highlights that we get are going to come from the metal paint that we end up putting on that thing. All right. But that's it. He's pretty much done. We're just going to put a metal belt on him. All right. Let's talk about next on our list. And that is going to be, let's do this guy. All right, that looks like his name is Hudson. Hudson looks like this. He's like an old man. And he is pretty much here's our color reference. He's really a light brown. So we're going to use, there's a couple things we do for this light brown. The first thing we want to do though is we want to do that dry brush of the white of the wraithbone again, just to give him some brightening up. Again, we just want these things to be a little bit brighter and smoother, especially around the face and the hands. Those are the things that tend to be more like smooth areas that we, especially as humans, as we look at things and we tend to concentrate on face and hands. And so those are the things that end up being things that are important to us. And so we want to make sure those areas look as smooth as possible. It looks weird to have someone to have a chopped up face. All right. We are going to use a combination of this Skeleton Horde color and this Agaros Dunes color. Agaros Dunes is my go-to. I call it the Bosk color. And that's pretty much what I like to use. And I think I'm just going to use this for his skin overall. The Skeleton Horde is just a little bit lighter shade than that. And I think I'm going to use the Skeletal Horde for his skin. I've changed my mind. All right, so we're just going to put this on his skin. And his beard is white, but we're going to layer brush on top of that anyway, so we don't have to worry about his beard getting any of this stuff on him. What we really want to make sure is that his hands, his arms have this color. He is wearing like armor, and this is like a leather armor shirt, so that's going to be more like our leather color that we had before. But he does have exposed arms up until these pauldrons, so basically this is supposed to be arm. Yeah, that's arm there, so that's good. And yeah, and then this is his legs, so we'll get put that color on his legs. Yeah, I'd say this color works. And yeah, just like that. He's looking good. Let's get him a tail. Right, and the cool part about using these, like, why wouldn't you just prime this white? Is that I really like these textures, especially for any creature or monster. Whenever you get this right, you end up getting this texture, like on the wings and stuff, that's really ends up being cool. Yeah, so I'm just going to put this stuff all over. Now, his wings in the picture looks like they're darker, so we might actually even put one coat darker on the wings. And you can see I put too much on this side, so it's kind of all glooping together. So I'm just kind of wiping it off actually with the brush. So that way I can make sure that I see the texture underneath. I want to make sure this texture is preserved, and we're just putting color on top, right? Now he's also going to have a two-tone wing here. So I'm going to leave these insides a little bit open because I'll put a darker color on the insides. You can see that there. So I'm just painting the bones. Now it's okay, you see I kind of spludged here, but I'm going to put a darker color on the inside, so darker will always cover up lighter, so I don't really have to worry about it. And then I just want to make sure his face gets... Again, if we hit the beard, it doesn't matter. We're going to put something on the beard anyway, so I just want to make sure that's basically his skin color. All right. There he is in all his glory. And now we're going to just use that Agaros Dunes that I showed you for his inside and make those a little bit darker. All right. And here we go. You see that? The dunes is a little bit darker than the skeletal horde. And yeah, and it's kind of black underneath too, so it should end up looking very two-tony, which is cool. With these paintings, you want to, especially when I speed paint, I'm looking for really just 2 or maybe 3 key colors that we want to shine through. So if we can two-tone things in certain areas, like keep the skin one way and the wings another way, those are the things you want to think about when you're doing this stuff. All right. So there he is, almost done. We just need to give him leather front here, which is going to be our Gorgrunta fur again, like we said. Always leather is always fur. Yep. Let me see if I have a brush I can put this fur on with. That's too big. Normally I have a glass of water I can wash off these brushes with, but I forgot to bring one. So we're going to go get one in a second. But until we get one, I'm going to be using new brushes for every paint. Here we go. Yep, so here he is. We're going to grab this fur. This is a fur coat, basically. It's a leather armor. So we want to make sure. It just looks like he's wearing a coat. Or a jacket. Right, so this is also probably leather armor here. That goes through like that. And then obviously the middle is going to be a belt. But he's got a sash just like the rest of them. So let's so get the leather coming down as a sash. All right, you got that. And that's it. And then we're just going to do gray for the pauldrons and the gauntlets and the belt. Right? Why not black? Because I want some of those highlights to show through, especially on the pauldrons and the other stuff. So yeah, so we're going to do this. We're going to do that. We are going to just put some gray on these pauldrons. Now, we're going to actually make these things silver, so that's why I'm not too worried about it not being dark enough. And I probably should have put everyone else's belts as gray as well, but you know, I just wanted to see how it would work. Part of this is just experimenting and screwing around with whatever you think works. For me, anything dark underneath silver and gold is going to work great. If you want the silver and the gold to, if you want the natural highlights to shine through the silver and gold, maybe just do like this and make it gray. And then it's going to look more white than silver and gold when you put the silver and gold on top of this stuff. But yeah, I think that's it. That's Hudson. Now let's just put a little bit of his beard with a, what color do we think his beard is? His beard is pretty white. But I don't want to go totally white with his stuff. So I'm thinking something like this, which is just a screaming skull. It's more of like a bone colored layer paint. Yeah, we're just gonna kind of lightly just brush it on here. We have, I mean, what's there already is kind of, it's kind of doing the job, but just a little light, like brushing on will make it pop. It just makes it kind of, we don't want to lose the shadows again, but we definitely want it to look like a conformed beard. You know, we don't want it to look all splotchy and stuff. So just kind of putting that there. And I'm sort of almost dry brushing it on because I don't want to, I don't want to completely cover it. He's got teeth in there and stuff that we don't want to cover up, but it just makes it, a little bit poppy. And that's probably also going to be his hair. So it's probably going to come around this way too. And be on the top of his head. Oops. So again, it lets the shadows still come through. It's more, you see how frayed this brush is? I'm just dry brushing it on, so it makes it a little bit easier to conform, and you're not really splotching it on. All right, but I think that's it for Hudson. A lot of this stuff we got to wait for it to dry before we can do any finishing details on it, but that's all he needs. And then we're just going to do one more, and I think we're going to do this guy who I believe is Brooklyn, right? Brooklyn. And I thought it'd be good to do Brooklyn because I think Brooklyn is going to be very similar to the in the American Monsters, the horrified American Monsters. I did the Jersey Devil, and the Jersey Devil is basically a red devil, and that's basically what this guy is. But the trick on these guys is that red is not really red. Red for me is this Griffhound orange color. Orange is actually the orange contrast anyway, is actually gonna be a great way to, the deeper part of the orange ends up being reddish or reddish tones. And so this orange paint I typically use for when people have red hair or something, or when people have anything that is red that's not so much like that it needs to be fire engine red. If it's red skin or red color or red something like that, typically this orange color actually fits the bill more than a red would. So you can see already when we put the orange on this thing, he looks like a red demon, even though it's just orange, right? But the key there is that I think, in general, it's flesh, right? So red flesh, even though it might be red, it's still going to be translucent a little bit. And that translucence is going to kind of trick our eyes into viewing it as more of an orange tone, even though our eyes see it as red. We know it's red. We're not, crazy in our lives here. But but in general, our eyes will still see that it's red, even though that we're putting on orange on it. It's very interesting how it works. All right, and you can see I also, he's got a sash just like the others. It's going to be that brown, but brown is darker than this orange, so it'll be okay for me to put the brown on top of this, right? But already he looks pretty cool, right? So now the only other thing I would do is maybe give him a little bit of a red dry brush just to make the red highlights come out. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take an actual red contrast, and we're going to put that on the inside of his wings. That's going to, because that actual red is going to be darker than a normal red. And so the actual red, you're going to see how this works. And then you'll see why I didn't paint the whole model red. You can see that red is really red, right? So you don't want this like super fire orange red on flesh. It just doesn't, it looks a little too red. It looks fake, right? It looks like the dime store Halloween costume you would get for a devil. This is more, and this is, you see how we get this great two-tone effect on the wings, because there's orange and red are great complementary colors with each other, right? The other thing I can do is now I have this contrast paint. I'm really going to rub it all off, and I'm just going to use it as maybe some highlights on the outside, and you can kind of see how I'm just doing my standard car wash, where I'm just gently touching to give it a little bit of a red hue, so it's even more subtle than a dry brush. But that's what really makes it. If it looks too orange, any areas where it looks too orangey, you can kind of just do this, and it's not really even dry brushing. It's more like smearing on red contrast paint. You still want that orange to come through. It just will make it more believable as red. So if there's something that's maybe a little bit too orangey that you want it to be a little bit more red, you can just kind of brush on the red, and then the red will mix with the orange. Basically, you still get orange on, in the underneath, but it makes it super red. It's just like, I didn't just slap red on this thing. Now you have all these gradients of reds and oranges that make it really cool, and I think that makes it look like the character, which is what we're going for. All right, everybody, that is all we have time for today. So just to recap, we did this guy I think came out the best. That would be Broadway. And yeah, he's super easy to do. He's probably one of the easier ones that we did. We've got Hudson, who came out pretty good. I think Goliath maybe needs a little bit of work, but you can see as he dried a little bit. I just need to smooth up the skin a little bit. The skin just doesn't look like skin anymore. So we'll just come back with a lighter kind of pinkish color to make that skin pop. But other than that, I think that's cool. And then you've got good old Brooklyn here. And this one is probably the most fun because whenever you do the black primer, you can see his eyes are already black and the ears have black. I mean, that comes from the black primer. So really all we did was colored the highlights, and we colored them in orange, and that makes it look like a red devil. It's really crazy. It's a cool little trick. All right, and then the box comes with 2 more folks. Unfortunately, I don't have enough time to get to them, so we'll get to them. We're at 1 hour right now, so that's it. In 1 hour you can get 4 of these guys done. I think the other guys would take 15 minutes or so, but that's it. I hope that helps everybody, and yeah, keep paints games, have fun.